Okay, so we have built the header, we have done the hero, and next up, we're going to work on this features section. Whoops, here. So this is the desktop version, and I'm actually going to turn on the layout grid so we can kind of see where the columns are. So these columns, there's 12 columns, and they have a sort of max width of 1110 degrees, 1110 pixels. And I just want to turn it on so we can see sort of the max width. So it looks like each column is taking about 1, 2, 3, 4. You can sort of maybe draw a line somewhere there. And then the next one, 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. So if there's 12 columns, each of these 3 columns will take up 1/3 of the width. So this is a desktop version. So let's also check out the tablet version. And here the layout is broken down to 2 columns. Let's see what layout they have here. Okay, so it looks like that's maybe not, we don't need to worry about the 12 columns here, but on tablet, there's 30 pixels of space on either side. Then when we go to mobile, it's 1 column. And then on mobile, we have maybe 16 pixels of space on either side. Yeah, so this should probably be 14. This should probably be 16 on the right side, but we'll say it's, yeah, 16 pixels on either side. So I might want to just double check that wrapper because I'm not sure I'd set the width of the wrapper to be to have 16 pixels of space on either side from mobile. So let's check that first. I'm going to turn on the emulator and select iPhone. And let's find a wrapper. So here's a wrapper. And it looks like I did set it up, so I guess good for my past self. And then it is 30 pixels of space on tablet. So I think we're actually good on that side. So let's just check the order also, because sometimes people will change the order of elements between mobile and then tablet and desktop. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, accessibility, React, Sass. And then on tablet, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, accessibility, React, Sass. So the order looks like it's the same. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, accessibility, React, Sass. Okay, so we don't need to worry about the order of things changing. Let's also, I'm going to hide this 12 column grid, but let's see what spacing they added. I'm just kind of curious. Gutter is 30 pixels. So if we use, we'll probably use CSS Grid for this and have a gap of 30 pixels for desktop at least. And then here, you know, we'll see what kind of makes sense. So let's start writing the markup for this section. Let's see, we have in VS Code. So here's the header that we have up here. And now that I think about it, this section, it doesn't really have a headline for the section. Like I would say this is skills, versus the next section below that is projects. But even though it's not in the design, I'm going to add a visually hidden header that says skills because this will help for people who are using screen readers to navigate this website. And on the same note, I think maybe I'm going to make another visually hidden header up here for the header, just to say header. And eventually at the bottom, I'll do the same thing for the footer. And again, this just kind of helps with navigation because one way that a lot of screen reader users tend to navigate websites is the screen reader can actually jump between headers. So having those headers in place with the proper number of the H tag is really important. So you're not supposed to jump from H1 to H3, but each of these sections will probably be in H2. So let's actually do that now. And I think I can't remember if I added a visually hidden style to our styles yet. Oh, I did. So visually hidden. And this is to, I guess, like the name says, hide something visually, but it is still visible to screen readers because it's simply positioned off the screen and it's set to a width and height of 1 pixel, so it still exists on the website, but you won't see it visually. So let's start with the header and add. And I'm just going to add it outside of the wrapper. It doesn't really matter a ton where this is. H1 header, and I'm going to give this a class, visually hidden. So we'll save that, and then in the main section, we have the hero, and we have our H1 here, the nice to meet you, I'm Adam Keys. So I think the hero section is fine. Okay, so we will add the markup for the skills section here, and I'm going to put it in a section tag, and I'll give it a class of skills, since it's going to be kind of the BEM block name. And I do use BEM even though I'm writing this in CSS, just because I feel like it's a nice way of organizing your class names. So when you see it, even on the website, if you're trying to inspect it, you can kind of see what it is. You can kind of see like what section that it belongs to. So we'll just follow a similar pattern here where we have a section tag, skills, this one goes all the way across, and then in that we're going to add a div with a class of wrapper, and I'm also going to add a class of skills wrapper just in case we need some section specific styles in there. And then under here, I'm going to add the H1 tag, but I think I might actually add it outside of the wrapper because the wrapper is going to, I think, be the grid parent for that grid of the different skills. And I don't really want the H1 involved in that, even though I think it might be okay. And I'm sorry, this should be an H2 tag. Whoopsies. And the one in the header should also be an H2 tag, even though the order is slightly off because this H2 tag, it comes before the H1 tag in the hero. But the browser can still sort of understand that. And I don't know if I'm doing everything exactly right, but I've just been using this accessibility developer guide website to help me decide what to do for stuff. So it's like, I don't know everything, but there are resources out there. This one's a really good one. So it's accessibility-developer-guide.com. And this is the article that I was looking at. So is it okay to have multiple headings on level 1? So there's just like different options that you can have. And one of them was H1 on top of main content. Yeah, so this creates a heading outline, which is technically invalid. And it starts with a heading on level 2, and you shouldn't skip heading levels, but screen readers fail gracefully in such situations, as you can see in the screenshot. So let's just see quickly what they did here. Yes, this is kind of what, I'm assuming this is where I found this. And zoom is a bit much. There we go. So yeah, so we have this H2 visually hidden header in the header, which is what I did. It looks like they have another one, visually hidden H2 for navigation inside the nav. So maybe I'll do this as well. So I just like to check out best practices and try to follow them as best as I can. So let's do that. And let's just make sure our website looks okay. So it doesn't look like these visually hidden elements have messed up anything, which is good. And they shouldn't really, because they are position absolute, so they're not going to affect the other elements that are not position absolute. So I think we are good for that. Okay, let's go back to making our markup. Okay, so here is our wrapper. And then in the wrapper, so again, I think I'm going to try to make the skills wrapper the grid parent. We're going to start with building the mobile version since it's one column. So what I'm going to do, I think, is let's look at the design again and sort of decide what we want this to be. So of course the default sort of maybe reflex is to put everything into a div, but I don't know if that's necessarily a great idea. We could say that since the h2 tag for this section is skills, we could make each of these skills an h3 tag. And then the description of how many years of experience would be in a paragraph tag. So that might be the way to go. And I forgot to write skills in here, or I think I just did it incorrectly. Visually hidden. There we go. So what I am thinking about doing is each of these skills will be in a div, and I'll say skills item, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then in there, I'll write an h3. And so, for example, the first skill is going to be HTML, and then I'll write a paragraph tag. Let's give these all a class too. Skills title, and then it'll be a paragraph tag with a class of skills description. And then, copy over this 4 years of experience. So something like this. And I think this is simple enough that I feel reasonably comfortable that I can just kind of duplicate these. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll press Control D to duplicate. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we might as well copy over. So it's HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all with 4 years of experience. So CSS, Java, script, and then accessibility, which is 4 years experience. And then I think React was next with 3 years, and then SAS 3 years. So now let's just see what we got in our website right now. So here's what we have. Obviously, it's not exactly what we want it to look like, but let's just go down in the device emulator to show what we have. And maybe the first thing I want to do is I want to add some space under that line. So here, there's 80 pixels of space. Did I do that for the hero? Okay, so there's 80 pixels of space above the line, and then under the line, there is 40 pixels of space. And what I'm doing is I'm selecting the element, holding down Alt, and then hovering over the element that I want to figure out how far the distance is between them. So 40 pixels of space under there. So let's also see at the bottom of this section how much space there is here. Also 40. So I think what I'm going to do is, for things like this, I like using padding to add space instead of margin. And I think people can do whatever approach makes sense for them or their preference. I just like using padding to have space, like not necessarily between one element and another, but just in the sort of wrapper thing itself. So what I'm going to do is skills wrapper. I'm going to add that as padding. So let's start making our styles here. And we'll just add selector for the skills section in case we need it. And then skills wrapper. And this is for mobile, so I'll say padding. And to add padding on the top and bottom, you can say padding block, because block elements will try to take up the entire width of the available space, but then they will have, they'll be displayed one underneath each other. So the block direction, I guess you could say, is up and down, versus inline, like we used margin inline to set the width of the wrapper, that's on the left and the right. And these things can change based on, I think, the direction, whether you're reading left to right or right to left. So instead of top and bottom, it's padding block, I think, start and end. Yeah. So they're using start and end instead of left and right. So it's like padding block start and end, margin inline start and end. And we're going to set both the start and end with this slightly shorthand property. And we said it was 40 pixels. And this is nice because before padding block and margin inline and padding inline existed, we had to do something like padding. And if I only wanted to set top and bottom, I would still have to set the other properties according to this padding shorthand property. So I'd have to say 0. But sometimes you might not want it to be 0 and it has to be something else. So then you'd have to manually override that. Whereas with padding block, it's just not even setting the inline side of the padding. It's only setting the top and the bottom. So it's a little bit more efficient, so you don't have to override things as much. So I like it. Okay, so now we have our padding block on top and bottom. Let's see what else we need. Okay, so obviously the size needs to be different, and also so I do want to use grid for these, for tablet and desktop. We don't have to use grid for this, but it might kind of be nice to use grid even for mobile when it's stacked to one column, because we can use the gap property and then we can just kind of adjust the gap. Whereas if we didn't use grid or flexbox, we would have to add margin to add space, and then we'd have to cancel that out when we're using grid for the bigger viewports. So I think it would be a bit more efficient if we just use grid, set it to one column, and then set a gap of 24 pixels. So let's try doing that now. And the skills wrapper, which is here, is going to be the grid parent. So I like putting my display properties at the top of the different style rules and selectors. Display grid, grid template columns. I'll just say 1FR because there's just one column. And then gap is going to be 25 pixels. I'm going to use pixels because these are one of those sort of smaller measurements that you don't necessarily want to scale up if you change the browser-based font size. So now, skills item. If we go to grid, there we go. Then if we click this, it'll highlight it. So now we can see in our browser, this is the grid. And you can see the gap property has that sort of shaded. So that's the gap of 25 pixels that we added. So it looks pretty good. And then I'm just gonna do this. So next up, let's get these fonts right. Oh, we also want to center things. So it's centered on mobile, and then it's going to be left aligned for tablet and desktop, it looks like. So I think I might just do a sort of global text align center kind of thing. Yeah. I don't think justify content would work because that would be, yeah, that wouldn't work because justify content would be just the grid content itself. So these skills items, and they're all taking up 100% of the width because they're block elements, so this wouldn't have no effect at all. I might, though, put the text align center on the skills item because that's kind of what that's sort of what is relevant. The skills wrapper is kind of 1-2 levels up. So I think it might be better to do skills item for that, but you can do, you can do whatever you want. It's more that I'm going to put the grid and layout stuff in the parent, and then it kind of makes more sense, in my mind at least, to put these in the skills item. Okay, so it's centered. Let's get these font sizes going. So it's 32, line height of 40 on mobile. Obviously, it's getting a lot bigger here. And this is heading L. And this is also heading L. So I sense that we're going to have to use a clamp at some point. So for the heading L on desktop, I'm assuming it's going to be 48 pixels font size and 56 pixels line height. So it's going to be 56 divided by 48, 1.17. And is it smaller on tablet? I feel like it might have been smaller on tablet. Nope, it's the same. So tablet is where we want the font size to hit that 48 pixels. And on mobile, it is... Oh, it's also heading L. Okay, so it looks like it's the same size actually on every device, which makes things easier for us. And I had made these H3 tags. So I also just want to do a quick glance to see if there are other H3 tags in the website that if we style these globally, it would affect them too. So H3's here. Next section, let's see what we got here. So this is projects. Projects would be an H2 tag, I think. And I think this would be an H3 tag. So the name of each project. So design portfolio, e-learning landing page, etc. So those are very different from the H3 tags here. So I think I'm going to set these styles for the skills H3s in the skills section styles, I should say. So it's going to be skills title. So we'll just add another selector here. Font size. It was 48, I believe. Oh yeah, let's write this line height before we forget. 1.17. And then I'm going to convert this to rems. So 48 divided by 16 is 3. And the font size bold should be already inherited from the browser defaults. So I think we're good there. Wait a minute. Sorry, this is actually smaller on mobile. I think I was looking at the tablet by mistake. So it's 32 on mobile and then the 48 on tablet. So let's pull out our typography calculator. What was it? 32, I think. Yes. 32 pixels, and then 48 pixels is going to be the max font size. 375 for mobile viewports, and then tablet, we're having it hit at, I can't remember if we changed it. It was 600 initially, but I think we may have changed it. Okay, I think we tried changing it, and then we changed it back. So 600 is still our tablet breakpoint. And that's when we want it to hit the 48 pixels. So we got our clamp formula, and we'll go all the way back down. And we'll replace the font size here. And we're going to round these to 2 decimal places. Okay, looks pretty good. Okay. I know this is silly, but I kind of like doing this where I line up the design almost where the browser is. Anyway, close enough. So let's get the space under the H3 tag too. It says 1 pixel, but I think there's space due to line height. So this is 16 pixels and it's 26 pixel of line height. Let's see if that's the same for tablet. This is AG body, so I'll check the design thing. 16 and 26 for mobile. Here we go. And it's 18 and 28. So it's slightly smaller. I don't remember if I'd set these yet. So I may have actually set it because we have paragraph styles here. So let's check out the computed font size. And it is 16. And if I remove this, it goes up to 18. So thank you, past me. We set the sizing up already. So we just need to, I think, get rid of this margin bottom because I think it doesn't exist here. Yeah, it's just like 1 pixel of space. So I guess we could set a margin bottom of 1 pixel, but it doesn't matter too much. Let's just see what it looks like. Okay. That looks pretty close. I might make it 2 pixels. I'm just kind of eyeballing here. Yeah, 2 sounds good. Margin bottom, 2 pixels. Okay, and now this is what we got. And then let's see. We had that 25 pixels of gap, I think, between them, 24. Okay, so this is actually quite close to the design. We do need to worry about, which I forgot about, the rings image is making a comeback here. And it looks like this is off screen. The left side is aligned vertically centered on mobile, and then it's kind of horizontally centered at the edge of this section. So we'll do another probably position absolute kind of thing. I can align it to the bottom of the section and then sort of bottom and right side of the section, and then we can adjust it after that. So let's see what we got in tablet just to see what's ahead. So it seems similar actually. So it's aligned to the halfway on the bottom of the section, and then I'm not sure how this side is determined, but we'll figure something out. And then on desktop, it looks like it's pretty much the same thing where it's just kind of off to the side here. So I think the rings image styles shouldn't change a ton. So let's try adding that in. And I'll just copy the markup we had for the hero. And we'll update the class. So, when I said I didn't want to put the H2 inside the wrapper because I was afraid it would mess up the grid styles, I think it actually might be okay because it's position absolute, but let's just test that and see. See if this messes up our grid. Okay, and it doesn't. So I think absolutely positioned elements, since they are taken outside of the DOM, they won't affect the layout of other elements. So with that said, let's and let's just check one more time. Where do we want this aligned? So I think I want it on the bottom of the section tag. So I'm going to make it a child of the section tag, not inside the wrapper. And rename the class to skills rings in case we need to set some styles. And it looks like the width is the same. The font size looks a bit weird. I think it's because I have this zoomed to make it more visible. Nope, the font size just looks weird. I don't know what's going on. Anyway. The width of this is 530 by 129, which is, I think, what we set. Yeah. So since I know I want this to be position absolute already, and the section tag, which is skills, I'm going to set that to position relative. So the rings will sort of stick to the boundaries of the section tag. So skills rings, position absolute, and I'm just going to start saying right 0 and bottom 0. And then we'll adjust from there. So here we go. Not too bad. And the skills ends here. Just for the sake of testing, I'm just going to add an outline. So you can see where it is. And then the left side is aligned in the center. So that actually might be interesting to position because I guess we could center it and then use translate to, let me think about this. The problem is if I have it aligned like this, and actually I might have wanted to do left 0 to align the left side. And then I would want to move this so that this edge is halfway on the section tag. So maybe actually left 50% would work because that would move it 50% of the parent's width versus translate, which will move it 50% of the actual size of the image. So that's not what we want. So let me just show you what that would do. Translate 50%. So see, it's moving it farther than the middle point because it's moving it half the width of the thing, of the image itself. So we don't want translate in this case. We want left 50%. Okay, so that's good, left 50%. And then it's also going to be halfway down there below the bottom of the line. And I think in that case, we actually do want translate. So translate 0 on the horizontal axis and then 50% on the vertical axis. So now you can see it is halfway like that. So we're doing pretty good here. Let's go back here. We'll replace these with what we put in the browser. And if we want to be really nitpicky, we can make left after bottom because it sort of starts at the top and then it goes right, bottom, left is the last one. So it doesn't matter a huge amount, but if you want to be super picky about it, you can do that. So I think we're pretty good there, for the rings at least. We do have to, looks like, add a line. It looks like the line is inside the wrapper because it doesn't go all the way across. And I don't remember if I did that for this. Oh, I did. Okay, perfect. So I did here was I did padding bottom 80%, 80 pixels, border bottom 1 pixel solid. And since this is kind of repeating, I might actually do like a helper class with that or something. Yeah, so it's white and it's 1 pixel tall. So for example, this is for the border bottom. So I could have this style and add it to a utility class. And then I don't have to repeat this style every time. And this is for the hero wrapper. And that's the only other place we have it. So let me show you what I mean. So hero, here we go. So here's the style that we are going to reuse. And for utility classes, maybe I'll add them under in the global styles, kind of before the header styles start. Oops. So I can say something like, bottom border. I know it's not very creative in terms of the naming, but there we go. And then I'm going to copy that class and add it to the hero wrapper. And do the same thing for the wrapper skills wrapper. So let's also get rid of that aqua outline. So now if we refresh, we have a line here. And we can see that it's coming from the bottom border class. This is where it has that bottom border. And then now we have the same thing here. So it's a little bit more efficient for the styles. Otherwise, we'd have to add this style rule to each section individually, which isn't a big deal for just one line of styles, but things can kind of add up. So it makes it easier. We can just add this utility class of bottom border wherever we need. So is that the only SVG in this section? Yeah, it looks like it. Okay, so I think we're good on mobile. Let's do this tablet one. So in this one, we're making them 2 columns, and I'm assuming there's going to be 50-50. Yeah. So what we want to do is we're going to add a skills wrapper class to our media query. Min width, put 37.5 EMs, I think. Let's just do a quick search. Yeah, 37.5. And then in the skills wrapper for tablet, we're going to change the grid template columns. So GTC, and we're going to change it to 2 columns. So we can go 1FR, 1FR. We can also say repeat 2, comma 1FR. They both amount to pretty much the same thing. And then the gap here might be a bit more. So it's 52 from rows. So 52 row property. And then I think it's just kind of designed this way, but yeah, I'm not sure. 52 pixels. Let's just try keeping it at 24 for the column gap for now. And this is a shorthand property. Oops. For row gap and column gap. So row gap is the space between rows, so the horizontal space, and the column gap is between columns, so the vertical space. Let's try going to iPad. And we're in 2 columns. Looks pretty good. We need to left align everything. So skills item, I think, is where we set text align to center. So yeah, so we'll set text align left. There we go. And, which is kind of cool, the rings is still in the sort of centered on that line. And we might have to move it off a bit. So again, I don't know exactly where it's positioned on the grid. Like, what is it aligned to? I don't really know. So I might just eyeball it. Actually, looks like it is. Oh, wait, there's no line on tablet. Oh boy. There's still a line here. So are there other lines? Or is this the only one? Looks like that's the only one. So the line is on mobile, but not on tablet for some reason. But there's a line under the hero is there on all devices. So I might have to take that line out of the utility classes. Or we could just add another style for skills wrapper for tablet and say border none. So then the hero line will still be there. Yeah. And it'll be here on mobile, as you can see, but not on tablet. Okay, so this needs to move up and to the right, it looks like. Yeah. So it's like halfway down the bottom of the wrapper container. So this actually looks like, let's add the outline back again. So vertically, I think it's okay. No, there's not as much space under here on tablet. So where is this coming from? There's a padding. Oh, yeah. I have 40 pixels of padding on the skills wrapper. That was for mobile again. I guess it looks like we don't have it on tablet. And there's 100 pixels of space. This feels a little bit. It's a bit tricky because, see, it's consistent here where there's 40 pixels of space on the top and bottom. And then 80 pixels. Yeah, 80 pixels between sections. And here it's 160. So I think we'll just have to go section by section. So the global styles that I'd added in padding for the wrapper class may not necessarily work. That's okay. We can just add sort of section specific overrides to that. So let's actually get this top padding okay first. So it's 52 pixels of padding on top before the line for tablet. 40 pixels. I'm trying to see if the 52 pixels of padding will be used later on. Okay, so it looks like it's sort of different on each section. So I'm just going to go section by section. I think that's the best solution here. So on the skills wrapper for tablet, I'm actually going to say padding block 52 pixels. So now, yeah, it's bigger for mobile, or for tablet rather. And then on the bottom, it looks like there's just no padding on the bottom, and there's just going to be space. So we'll say padding block 52 pixels 0. And that should add 52 pixels of padding on the top and 0 on the bottom. So there we go. So now at least the ring seems to be more aligned, like halfway on the bottom. Okay, so now we have to figure out how much we want to bring that to the right, the rings image. I mean, I could say for the rings, I could say maybe undo these. So for tablet, I could add lines saying left auto, right 0. No, that's not right. Because right means the right edge of this. So I guess I could just translate it more. There we go. So something like that. Sorry, there you go. Maybe a little bit less for the horizontal alignment. So 40, 50. And that's for skills rings. And did I do anything else? I think that's it. Did I add this? I don't remember. For skills wrapper. I did. Okay, so now let's check it out. Okay, so now the rings position does look a bit more like what we have there. This extra copy is just kind of getting in the way a bit, so I'm going to just add some space and move it down. It's maybe after the main. There, just to add a bit more space. This will be a temporary style that we'll remove later. Oh, there's no main. Okay. And then I'll just make a comment saying temp. So we will remove it before we, launch a website. All right, so now tablet styles actually look pretty good. Yeah. Okay, let's try the desktop version now. So desktop is similar. It's just going to 3 columns. Now let's check the spacing. 72 now. So let's do that. And let's find a desktop breakpoint. There we go. 62.5 EMs. Oops. Then I'm going to go to the bottom here. And this is for desktop stuff. So the first one is skills wrapper. And I'll add padding block. And that was 72. And I guess I don't have to say padding block, I can say padding block start. 72 pixels. So now we can see skills wrapper has 72 pixels of padding. Now we can change our grid template columns to, yeah, let's do repeat. Repeat 3, 1FR. And let's actually check on the gap property there. 58 and 30. Gap 58 pixels, 30 pixels. Wait, this is still. Oh, main tag. There we go. It's like, why is that margin bottom not working? There we go. Okay. So now, skills wrapper. That looks pretty good. Okay, it looks pretty close. And then the rings are going off to the side again. So let's see. I just have to move it. I might do something different. So I might do something like left 100% and translate none. Or sorry, translate negative 10%. I do need that negative 50% for the y-axis, I think. Looks like there's still space under there. Oh, that's probably because of the paragraph tag. Okay, let's just copy what we have here for desktop for skills rings first. Okay, actually that looks kind of good. And then I think there's just space under these, yeah, space under the paragraph tag. So skills description, and maybe we should do that for all of them. Yeah. So the skills description, we want to get rid of the margin bottom. And actually, I think instead of bottom, I should use margin block end. And margin top 0 should be margin start, margin block start. Just to keep the naming consistent. Anywho, margin block end. Let's see if that actually works. Oh yeah, it did get rid of the margin. Sweet. So I actually want to change this to margin block start. So we'll just check the header. Hero. I'm just gonna be adventurous and just save all and see if anything breaks. I think it's fine though. Yeah. Yep, nothing looks horribly weird. So I'm just kind of seeing the position of the rings, so that looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And yep, there's no line under there for desktop, so I think we're good on this section. So that was a little easier than the hero section with all the absolutely positioned stuff. And I was thinking about that more. I think the lesson with absolute positioning is that try to avoid, setting pixel like top of 445 pixels, because if things change, as we saw with the height of the hero headline, it kind of messed up the other stuff. So if you can, it's always better to sort of try to set the absolute positioned element as a child of a relatively positioned parent and sort of align it according to those edges. So you can say, right 0, bottom 0, and then use translate to adjust after that, which is what we did with the rings, which is maybe partially why it was a bit easier rather than having to try to set, top of whatever and then it changes. So, okay. So I think we're good on the skills section.